The People Under the Stairs, written and directed by Wes Craven, released November 1991, stars Bryan Adams, better known as his role in Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. He does star as Zeke and appears in the segments Smooth Criminal and Batter. In this film, he appears as Fool, and alongside him we also have Ving Rhames. Oddly enough, this may actually be the first film in which he did also appear with or alongside a leather-clad character. The second film, of course, being with a more uncomfortable circumstance. The film basically does open up with Fool receiving a tarot card reading from his sister Ruby, and this is just a reading that is done on his 13th birthday. We find that Fool, of course, got his name from the Fool card, and we also receive the explanation that Fool is not meant to be any type of derogative or rude term, but rather implies lack of knowledge, in which the person who is or has drawn the Fool card will gain knowledge through trials and tribulations and come out a man rather than remaining a boy. This also does heavily hint towards Fool's role in the film. After the reading, we do find that Fool and his family have been evicted from their apartment. Leroy, who happens to be either a friend or Ruby's lover, coaxes Fool into joining him and a companion on a heist. The intent is to steal some gold coins from the landlord's residence. Fool poses as a Cub Scout in order to case the place, but is not gained entry. Spencer, who is of course the companion, then poses as a electric companyman, does gain access into the home. Unfortunately, after the landlords do leave to do some grocery shopping, we notice that Spencer does not leave the home. So, of course, Leroy and Fool break into the home, not wanting to be cut out of the deal, and realize that the house is not only heavily booby-trapped, but also has steel-enforced doors, soundproof and bulletproof windows, as well as a Rottweiler. So Fool basically does find out Spencer is killed. He's been dumped into the basement. He heads back upstairs to let Leroy know what he has found, and realizes that the landlords have returned. The landlords shoot and kill Leroy on the spot. Fool is dumped back into the dumpster, and he is surrounded by fluorescent cannibalistic freaks. Roach, who is a former resident of the cellar, happens to create a distraction, allowing Fool to escape. He is basically following a lure, which is basically a doll on a string, which is being led by Alice, who happens to be the landlord's daughter. We do find that Alice is, of course, the daughter, and all of the freaks in the basement actually happen to be discarded or bad children. Their only crime, of course, being the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil rule, and in turn have also had the corresponding body parts removed as punishment. Fool then eventually does retreat back to Ruby's bedroom along with Roach, and we find that Roach does not speak because his tongue has been removed. Daddy, who is of course the Mr. Robinson, the landlord, has a habit of donning a full leather BDSM outfit whenever he does go hunting or in pursuit of Roach or Fool. Eventually, of course, does manage to evade capture once again with the help of Roach. Roach, unfortunately, is shot during the pursuit and eventually dies, but not before being given some gold coins and being asked by Roach, of course, to save or help Alice. Fool eventually does manage to escape from the home and vows to return for Alice. Later that evening, Fool's grandfather informs him that the value of the coins is not only enough to cover their rent for the next 9 years, but also cover the cost of his mother's cancer treatments. We also learn that the Robisons are actually not spouses, but rather brother and sister who live in an incestuous relationship. This, of course, being brought on the paranoia of losing their family's wealth. They, of course, built their money on the funeral home business and later found success through real estate. So Fool does return to the home in an attempt to save Ruby. He does inform her eventually, of course, that the Robisons really are not her parents. They basically abducted or kidnapped her at birth. Also along the way, along with the neighbors, in order to protest being kicked out of their home and having their complex basically bulldozered, This, of course, does create an inadvertent distraction, allowing Fool to go back down to the cellar, tell the freaks how to escape. Later on, they, of course, do come crashing through the floors and walls and corner Mommy, who is the only name that we do know Mrs. Robinson by in the film. She is cornered into the kitchen, and as Alice denounces her as ever having been her mother, her throat is slit. Along the way, of course, they do, of course, manage to escape from the home after, of course, Mommy has been killed. And very grown-up names. I totally do not feel childish calling two characters Mommy and Dad. Is just very, very retarded, actually. But those are the only names they have, so we just have to deal with that. So, of course, Fool does blow up the home, and the house basically does erupt in an explosion of dollar bills and other priceless monies being strewn throughout the neighborhood. We would assume that this is a happy ending, but you also have to think to yourself, well, what does happen to the cannibal freaks? They're going to be wandering out in the streets. They no longer have a home. Are they going to be eating people's cats and dogs? And another thing that does make me curious is, why would you keep these discarded people in your cellar? Wouldn't it just be wise to just kill and do off with them? This is obviously the great lesson that you do learn from keeping resentful people under your house. They, of course, will escape and kill you. And the second point that does also make me extremely curious is, why does Alice not feel uncomfortable sleeping or undressing in a house in which a very strange man is actually able to escape, run through walls, and has access into entering any room in the home that he pleases? It's just very, very interesting points that are never addressed. I actually first saw this movie in theater, rewatched it years later during my high school years. This is actually the third time I watched this movie, and it's not as good as I remember it being. I remember the movie being a lot more enjoyable. It has held up, of course. It does have its black comedy moments, which does accompany the eccentricities of the main characters, which does fit very well. And all in all, it is a good movie. Maybe I just need to rewatch it and rethink my opinion. But yeah, I do remember liking the film a lot better when I was younger. But that is it for today, and we will talk to you later.